Hi, I am so glad to be there with you today. I was so glad to get the invitation to share a story with you for your chapel hour. Hope you're all doing well. Now, I am going to share a story with you, but I have a few questions for you before I get started. Let me ask you to think about a few things. For example, how many of you, think about this and be honest, how many of you would stay in the house and not go outside to play while your parents were away, even though they told you to stay inside before they went away? You got that? How many of you would stay inside anyway while your parents were away, even though they told you not to go outside while they were away? Let me ask you another question. How many of you would take, let's say, candy from a stranger, even though you knew you weren't supposed to, but it was your favorite candy and you liked it and you hadn't had any in a long time? How many of you would take candy from a stranger that way? Tell the truth. How about this one? How about if somebody was going to give you the right answer to the test and you really didn't know it, but you wanted to do well on the test and you knew it wasn't right to take that answer, but it would help you to get that grade you wanted to make? And how about one more? How about if a stranger came along and offered you food to eat after you hadn't had anything to eat for 40 days and you were starved? Yeah, that's a hard one. That's a test that was given to Jesus, even. Think about those things. What helps us to be able to do the right thing at the wrong time, maybe? Or do the right thing when it's so hard to do? It's hard. Temptation is like that. Because we like to do what we like to do, and we like to do it when we want to do it, even when we're not supposed to. Self-control. What is that anyway? What do you know about self-control? Well, I think perhaps self-control is doing the right thing, even when it's hard, even when no one is looking, even when your friends aren't doing it, even when it might hurt you in some kind of way. Self-control is maybe doing the right thing just cause it's the right thing. But I'll leave you with this question, and maybe you can talk about it after we're done and the story is over. Self-control, where does it really come from? Does it come from the self or somewhere else? Here's a story, and I'm going to ask you to help me with this story, and I'm going to give you a cue that looks like this. And when I give you that cue, I want you to say with me, had, set, up. Let's try it. Had, set, up. Great. Now, this is a Bible story, and it comes from the book of Daniel, and it comes from chapter 3. And maybe you'll even want to talk about what it has to do with self-control. Now, this story is about three young men. They may have been teenagers, say, But they've been given a special job because of their strength and their intellect and their good looks. The king had put them in charge of the province of Babylon. Well, I guess maybe that's why he got so upset with them when they wouldn't do, just what he wanted them to. Here's the story. King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold that was 90 feet high and 9 feet wide and set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then he summoned together all his satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, and other magistrates and provincial officials to come to the dedication of the image of gold that he, now here's where you join me, had set up. So all the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and other provincial officials assembled before the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. And they stood before it. Then the herald loudly proclaimed, "This is what you are commanded to do, O peoples of every nation and language. As soon as you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipes, and all kinds of music, you must bow down and worship the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. And whoever does not bow down and worship the image will immediately be thrown into the blazing furnace." So, as soon as they heard the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipes, and all kinds of music, all the people of every nation and language bowed down and worshiped the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Now, about this time, some astrologers came forward to accuse the Hebrews. And they said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "O king, live forever. King, you have issued a decree that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipes, and all kinds of music must bow down and worship the image of gold that you have set up. And whoever does not bow down and worship the image will immediately be thrown into the blazing furnace." Now, there are some Hebrews, O king, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who you have put over the affairs of Babylon, and they pay no attention to you, O king. They neither serve your gods nor worship the image of gold that you have set up. Furious with rage, King Nebuchadnezzar summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and these men were brought before him. King Nebuchadnezzar said to them, "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you neither serve my gods nor worship the image of gold that I have set up? Now, when you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipes, and all kinds of music, if you are ready to bow down and worship the image, then very good. But if you do not, you will immediately be thrown into the blazing furnace. Then what God is able to rescue you from my hands?" Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to the king, and they said, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. And if we are thrown into the blazing furnace, then the God we serve is able to save us from it, and he will rescue us from your hand." But even if he does not, we want you to know that we will not serve your gods, nor worship the image of gold that you have set up. King Nebuchadnezzar was furious. He was so furious that his face became contorted, and he ordered the furnace be heated up 7 times hotter than usual. And he commanded some of the strongest soldiers in the army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. So these men, wearing their robes and their trousers and their turbans, were tied up and thrown into the blazing furnace. The king's command was so urgent and the furnace was so hot that the flames of the fire killed the soldiers who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these men, firmly bound, fell into the blazing fire. Then King Nebuchadnezzar leaped to his feet in amazement, and he said to his advisors, weren't there 3 men that we threw into the blazing furnace? And they answered, certainly, O king. And he said, look, I see 4 men walking around in the furnace, unbound and unharmed. King Nebuchadnezzar then made his way to the opening of the furnace, and he shouted out, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the furnace. And the satraps, prefects, governors, and royal advisors crowded around them, and they saw that their bodies were not burned. Their hair was not singed. The clothes they were wearing were not scorched. And there wasn't even the smell of smoke on them. King Nebuchadnezzar said, blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He sent his angels to rescue his servants. They defied the king's decree. And they were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god other than their own. Therefore, I decree that the peoples of every nation and language who say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be chopped up into pieces and their houses turned into piles of rubble. For no other God is able to rescue in this way. And then King Nebuchadnezzar promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. That means they got a better job and a pay raise in the province of Babylon. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.